awesome tuber friends. I hope you took last week's assignment seriously, went out and bought some coloring books, because I wasn't kidding when I said that we were going to curl up in some jammies with some pillows and a blanket and chill out and spend some time coloring together. And hopefully by the end of this episode, you will understand why I decided that coloring was so important and needed to be on my list of recovery crafts. Hang in. Alright, so while I'm going through and picking out what I want to color, ooh, and I forgot to mention this in this last video, I actually did pick up some new crayons, for, I actually got these at the dollar store. So again, if we're talking about, finding a way to do something that's quick, cheap, and economical, here you go. And they're actual good brand. I remember getting those, the crayons as a kid, like the 64 box, but they were the off-brand, and I loved them because I got crayons. I mean, we grew up, and money was really tight, and so just the fact that I was able to get them was awesome. They even had some of the off-brands with the sharpener in the back, which was super cool, but the colors were never as vibrant as they looked. Like when you picked it up, you're like, ooh, this is going to be so bright, and then you start coloring with it and it's really waxy and not a lot of color transfers. So being able to get good name brand ones as an adult is kind of super awesome. This is one of the coloring books that I got from the dollar store. And speaking of adult coloring books, I may not be able to go into a bar room anymore, but I can certainly color one and imagine all of what these pictures would be. So that's kind of fun. These ones are also perforated too, so that you could frame them if you wanted to. I didn't realize that these had this. But I think I'm gonna stick with some pretty flowers. It's about time. I'm getting into that time where I'm ready for spring, so I am certainly looking forward to dreaming up a spring-like scene and getting myself prepped for some warmer weather. It's not too cold outside right now. It's just super rainy and gross. So I am actually going to jump into my old Stuffs for the Drawing box, because I really like working with colored pencils. Alright. Well, I should leave that open for creativity's sake. Open! So, as a quick story, I remember when I was younger, my mom and dad had just separated, and we moved back in with my Nana for some time. And I have this memory, and it's funny that I didn't think about it until I started actually picking up these books to start coloring, that my mom and I would lay in bed at night, and we would pull out coloring books, and she would actually color with me. And of course, as a kid, it was just fill in the spaces and just color the page. And of course, I get creative and funky with colors, as a lot of kids do, which is awesome. But my mom had this awesome way of everything had to be just right. I mean, she would go through every crayon. She found a way to make kids' coloring books adult. Do you know what I mean? But it was amazing the work that she could do. She would do these pages that were, they were so lifelike. And I just remember looking over at her as a kid and saying, Mom, I want to color like you. You color so good. And I couldn't understand how she did it. And I remember her showing me as a lesson that what she would do is take the crayon and she would actually outline over the solid lines with whatever color she was using. She'd go over all the dark lines with a decent amount of pressure. And then she'd go back in and she would ever so lightly, she would do it in these perfect circles. She like a rotary sander, basically. I mean, she would go in and color and fill in all of those spaces, and it would take her so much time, but she was so meticulous about it, and she would never leave the lines. And it's a really cool memory that I have of learning how my mom would color, and how, like, I never thought about it before, but how did she learn to color like that? It's a very cool memory that I have, and it's actually a really peaceful memory of a really nice time from when I was younger, and that is part of the reason why I think coloring can be so important. I think it triggers memories of an easier time. When I say that we didn't have a whole lot of money growing up, we didn't, but that didn't lessen the fun that we had, or the times that we had. I had a very nice childhood, and I was very fortunate in that, and I didn't need money in order to have an amazing childhood. And it was moments like that that made it so special and so amazing. And that just goes to show you what coloring can bring out. Being able to revert back to those memories and those moments, and remember a little bit of a happier time. And see, okay, here's another thing, forgiveness. I just went outside of the lines, guys. It's okay to go outside of the lines. Lines are a suggestion. And that's why I brought up like the coloring in these coloring books, because of all the blank space that you have where you can go back in and you can fill in trees and bushes in a scene like this. Or you can draw in all sorts of other little animals and actually create an entire world where all this blank space is. And sometimes when we feel like... Camera totally just cut out on me. So, sometimes when we feel like the world around us is just out of our control and dark, and maybe things aren't going quite your way, it's really neat to be able to find a world, even if it's just on paper, that you can control what's going on. You have some control over this. And that can be really reassuring and really calming, and get you out of that negative headspace, which I want to hang out with the antelopes. Yeah, just finding a way to get you out of that negative headspace. And then I actually continued talking for like 10 minutes before I realized that the camera had shut off. So now I'm trying to go back and talk about what I was referring to before. And I don't remember what that is. And that's okay. Oh, I was talking about forgiveness. And sometimes with the, like, going outside of the lines and making mistakes is how we grow. Making mistakes is super important. And I was saying that actually some of my best jewelry pieces have been pieces that are born from a mistake. I'll come out, I'll plan out this entire idea of what I want to do for a piece. I'll sometimes draw it out, or I get this great idea in my head, and I think I understand the mechanics of how it's going to work, and so I'm pretty confident, so I'll start working on it. And again, me being super thrifty, I don't like wasting any wire if I can avoid it. So I get this amazing idea in my head, I start working on it, and halfway through, something completely unexpected that I couldn't have planned for goes wrong. And now I've got this piece, and I'll get frustrated. And I will take the piece and I will put it to the side, and I'll work on other things. And sometimes it can take 2 or 3 weeks before I actually go back to that piece. But what's really cool is when I pick that piece back up, I might notice something. Maybe a wire is bending a certain way, or something is moved or shifted in a way that I get a completely different idea than what my original idea was. And sometimes, actually, some of my best pieces were born out of those pieces that were complete mistakes in the beginning. And if I just walk away from it for some amount of time, it's a couple of hours or 2 weeks. Sometimes that's exactly what I need, is a pause, a break from it. I'll go on to something else. I'll move on. Move on from it. Move on from the mistake. Go back to it later. Revisit it when you're in a different headspace. So when you color outside of the lines, yeah, I did. I got some green into an area where I wasn't planning on putting any green there. Is it a big deal? No, because this is just for me. And even if it is for somebody else, even if I wanted to gift it, that could end up being, maybe that piece was supposed to be green. I just didn't see it that way yet. But now that it's there, now I have to revisualize, and revisualizing is a way of learning and growing. See, now I'm just zoning out. All right, I gotta make this quick. I couldn't figure out why my camera keeps cutting out on me, and apparently it's because I have no more storage space on my phone right now, so I need to upload some video and clear some stuff out. So I'm not gonna be able to complete and spend more time with you guys coloring right now, but I think we're gonna revisit this topic. I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts. Please subscribe, follow, share, like, do all the things, come back for more, and I really appreciate you guys spending your time with me and hanging out. We will color again soon, my friends, I promise. Have an awesome weekend. Talk to you later.